All right, welcome to another episode of the Sore Losers Show. Today, I'm stoked to have with me Chris from deathbreathskateboards. I can edit that out. I probably won't. And I'm really happy to say I'm in Newcastle again, where Chris resides, makes his skateboards. We'll get into that a little bit later. But I did want to ask, I wanted to start with how you started skateboarding, where you were, and just let's walk through the Chris story. Yeah.
Oh, well, first off, welcome to Newcastle.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be here.
I grew up in Moordale, just outside, a suburb outside of Hurstville, I guess, in South Sydney. Bum scooting around at about 10 years old. And that would have been about 88, so seeing skating life in news agencies and being attracted to this bright and wild thing, it just caught my attention. But skateboarding was banned in my household.
Was it?
Yes.
Have you got siblings that applied to as well?
Oh, yeah. My brother, who's 4 years older than me, I don't know what it was of the era, but he made like this miniature skateboard in like woodwork or design tech, whatever. But it was like miniature, 1 foot surface area.
Do you remember the boards, the Bigfoot? Like, which was very similar. It was basically a board this big.
It must have been coming from that.
Yes.
They were wild shapes, but they were miniature and pointless. Like you could fit them in your bag.
Yeah.
And I just remember seeing that, and then my dad just chucking it out and saying, no skateboards allowed, they're too dangerous.
Wow.
But I think that's being banned from skateboarding, skateboards being banned. I think that's what drew my attention to it.
Yeah.
He went off with another family, so skateboarding was allowed.
Okay.
From there I was given a John Gibson Alva street deck, the Tritar.
Yep.
I just remember looking at that and just going, "Oh, this looks amazing!" Like the concave and what the tail was doing, it was just incredible. But still, bum scooting, maybe standing up.
Yep.
Probably did that for a few years. There was a guy actually in Moordale, like a street away from me, called Andrew, and he used to skate Olds Park.
Okay.
I knew the name Old Spark, but at that age, I'd never seen the park or anything like that. And he had Skating Life magazines. He would invite me over, let me look at his skate mags. And I'm several years younger than him. And he would invite me over, and like this dude was incredible, like to the point where I wanted to change my name to Andrew.
Yeah, right.
Just such an influence, and like I knew how good he was on the skateboard. And,
yeah.
But I guess he moved on, and I still had a bit of a bug for skateboarding, and I moved to my grandparents' house, which is right near Olds Park. So Olds Park became my home ground.
So I guess being very close to Olds Park, you're also very close to Alloa?
Yeah.
Well, close enough to Alloa.
Yeah. Just been on the other side of Hurstville.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely explored that. I never got my head around a taco bowl.
Okay, yeah.
I also went to school at Peakhurst High, which had another taco bowl in the field across the road.
So, Gannon's? Yeah.
Yeah, Gannon's Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've had it, I've had these bowls around me, but I didn't know how to skate them.
I can't believe how popular they were. So much so that when Belconnen was built or opened, I guess designed in the late 80s, and Gannon's and Alloa had been around for a while.
Yeah.
They actually did a closed-in Mexican hat in the first rendition of Belconnen Skate Park, which had steel coping around it, which I was amazed at.
Yeah,
because those two never had it. And the fact that it was 360 degrees and didn't taper off to nothing for drainage purposes, I was amazed by. But
they used to terrify me because you'd roll in on one thing and then go, "Oh shit, there's an island coming for me." What do I do? Like we would just absolutely wreck ourselves on those.
Yeah, I remember hanging up on. There was a couple of spots on the island at Alloa specifically, where if you tried to roll in there, you'd basically, your truck would head on it.
Yeah.
And a few times I found out where those spots were the hard way, you know.
And the old school concrete would absolutely shred.
Oh, yeah. It's like sandpaper, basically. Yeah.
But I stuck to the transition at Olds Park.
Mhm.
I was become quite adept to the big ramp there. The little rubber ramp with the giant coping was
Oh, yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Glad I'll never see that thing again. But
Yeah.
that
Well, you might.
really,
I only say that because that park's due to open before Christmas, and the ramps that were ripped out of there to put a new park in there have been taken away by a local artist who is doing some artwork out of them. So you'll see that you may see those ramps again, but in a different format. Yeah.
Well, I don't know who designed that little one anyway. It was ridiculous,
Yeah.
like a rubber sheeting on top as well. Like anyway, but yeah, that was my base for about another 3-4 years, I think. Just living out in my grandparents' house, and I think from then I moved to Hurstville, sharing with a mate, and so that would be early 2000s.
Yep.
And would still skate Oz Park, but more your car parks and your schools around Hurstville.
The Slappy era.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where we would, I was saying to you earlier, like, oh, there's Satika, or there's Mick Ewan, hanging around Hurstville and just seeing these Australian skateboarding legends and just being stoked about that.
Yeah.
And then from Peakhurst, I moved, Hurstville, I should say, I moved to Newtown pretty much to skate Waterloo. So I was introduced to Fernside by a mate, and I just knew, this is where I want to kind of skate.
Yeah.
There's a good music scene in Newtown.
Just to clarify, Fernside wasn't Fernside today back then.
No, this is the prefab steel, janky, loud, sheet metal beat.
Yep.
That was there.
Yeah.
Tetanus steel basketball court.
Like another great idea in skateboard park design. Like, let's make everything out of metal and just drop it on top. We'll take the hoops out of basketball court, which is not going to piss off the locals at all. And we're going to put skate facilities, and nobody in the neighborhood really skated. So,
it was a wild, loud park, but they were formative years for my skateboarding.
Absolutely, I agree.
So a big part of me. And I think from Newtown, I think I stayed there for about 3-4 years, and then injured myself something ridiculous, and then took a break from skateboarding.
Yeah.
But
it happens.
Knees, both ankles, just rolling them and not knowing how, like back then, how to treat an injury like that.
Nobody saw a physio or but
that seems so distant or unachievable to actually do that. Like, how do you see physio? Like, for me, I didn't even go to doctors. So
if I did go to a doctor, it would a physio or any kind of. I think doctors didn't understand what skateboarding was, first of all. So whatever injuries you had, there was no thought put into the recovery so you can get back to skateboarding. It was always just like, well, you should stop skateboarding.
Yeah. Totally.
There was no like, oh, this will get you. Look, gonna write you a referral to get some physio done, and you should see this doctor. He's really good with knees, and none of that. It was like,
stop it.
Yeah, just stop.
Well, so I had ballooned ankles from being rolled so much, and I was putting like Tiger Balm or other natural local remedies on these things and having them burning and just going, well, I think it's going to help. Mm-hmm. So I'd do that for a week, and then I skate and injure myself and do that, rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
So I just got to a point where I was just like, I can just ollie now. That's the only thing that my legs will let me do. I'm going to look for other things, and I delved deeper into music at around that point.
Okay.
And then fast forward, I'm in Newcastle, still doing music. But
what brought on the move from So as you were saying, like you got into music, and at that time you were living in Newtown.
Yep.
And so that progressed to a level of basically, were you looking at that as a career?
No. It's just like skateboarding. It's just another outlet.
Yeah.
Playing punk rock and hardcore music.
Yeah.
So I didn't really see it as a career. It was just where my focus was now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I guess it works that way. Like when you're devoted to something like skateboarding and that is your creative outlet, it might not be your sole creative outlet, but it definitely is the core.
Yeah.
And there's little, it's the nucleus.
Yeah.
And, you have offshoots that joint, but it's always, it always comes back to skateboarding. And so if that's taken away from you as a physical activity, I think your soul still stays in that. So you're still drawn to the things around that, like punk rock music.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's so intertwined. So essentially it's still fulfilling that whole skateboarding vibe.
Yeah.
Or lifestyle. So it's still feeding into that. So that's where I leaned into to let myself recover, and it worked. 10 years off skateboarding actually.
Wow. Yeah.
Really helped.
I did. I had not even a year, and getting back on a skateboard, I felt awkward. So I can't imagine, and like this is just recently, so
Yeah.
with a lot more years behind me of skateboarding.
Yeah.
So I expected to get back on because in the past I've had like multiple injuries, which take me out for 3 months, 4 months, close to a year, this, that, the other. But I've always sort of recovered differently. But I think from my recovery process this time and taking it so seriously that the way I move in general changed.
Yeah.
Just through doing the exercise physiology, the physio, everything became so much stronger in my core, and I became so much more aware of it.
Yeah.
That I was on a subconscious level adjusting myself while on a skateboard, so it felt really awkward when I got back. So
Yeah. I totally relate to that. Coming back to skateboarding was just like, if you, even things like if you put your foot here, or if you lean this way, or when you start thinking about your body and where that strength is and where you're going to apply strength and all that, like skateboarding was completely different.
Yeah.
And like it was no more just like, here's a skateboard, there's a milk crate, and I somehow get this board to flip over it, and hopefully I'll land on it. Like there was way more thought into it now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I find. I think it's really common as we get older as skateboarders. Like when you're basically discovering everything through doing it.
Yeah.
And just fail, make it once. You have no idea what you did different on the make.
Yeah.
But you made it, so keep going and fail. And then
That's like, when you have a skate mate that's just, you would say was naturally gifted. I wonder if there are people that's what they're doing. They're just like being more in tune and more aware of things. That wasn't me.
That's a really interesting point, because I think in, say, the last 10 years, maybe 15, maybe, I have started thinking about analyzing where my foot is on every attempt and going, well, that wasn't right, and that's probably why, and then adjusting slightly and getting a little closer and go, well, that's closer, and so that makes sense because, like, this shoulder's leaning slightly this, and, like, really overthinking it.
Yeah.
To the point where I'm like, okay, now I'm drawing, like, mathematical equations up in the air, and maybe it's not that much, but yeah, it's a really interesting point. Those people maybe thought about it enough.
Well, maybe they don't. Like, look at someone like a previous guest that you had, like Cameron Markin.
Yeah.
I don't think he puts too much thought in it. I think Cameron just goes with the flow and just goes.
Yeah.
Like, the dude's made of rubber and just can get in and get out of anything, it looks like.
I've seen him take. We
Oh,
skate.
yeah, he's definitely falls.
Oh, yeah, but
He falls.
I've seen him take a kind of fall where most people go, that's it, I'm taking like the next fortnight of skating.
Yeah.
We were skating, so a great guy, Ed, who lives around Camperdown, did a little, so I think it's 16 stairs and it's got a curb next to it.
Yeah.
And it was this gnarly old crusty curb, and he built a little concrete roll up to it and then waxed it and made it skatable. But at the end, it's a pathway like maybe 1.5 meters wide, and then it's a wall. So now you're coming down like the tiniest hubber in the world. At maximum speed, directly towards a wall, and all Cam wanted to do was basically 50-50 it and turn out that 90-degree angle from it without touching the wall. And I got it a couple of times. I was happy to put one hand on the wall and go, okay, yeah, I get what he's going for, but he had one that kind of stopped towards the end, and it was, because it's like, it's stairs, right? So it's basically, it's a 45-degree angle, or well, close to it. And just stopped. He wasn't expecting it, and he basically just shoulder barged the ground and came really close to hitting the wall with his head. I was like, man, that's a fortnight off. Actually, for me, at that stage, that'd be like, I'm taking the next 6 months off.
I would have avoided stairs for you.
Yeah, I'm not even walking upstairs, or especially down.
Yeah.
But he got up, he did it again, and yeah. But such an amazing skateboarder.
Yeah.
It's so strange to actually think about. I wonder if he puts thought into stuff, or if he just makes a decision in the moment of like, I'm going to try this. You know,
I think there's that state of flow. You get it with surfing as well, where you just feel what's happening. And I think some people are in tune with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also on the other spectrum of being analytical about it, I think there's definitely some people that can really work all that out and go, I'll leave here, but my foot's here and I'm going to go that way. And
yeah,
it's a bit of madness. And I can get sometimes, like, I feel myself getting to play and I'm just like, oh, if only it was always like this, but it's not.
Those golden days where it's like, I can do no wrong.
Yeah.
And then you have another day. I have an infamous one where, for some reason, I don't know what happened. Wasn't the board? It wasn't a new board.
Yeah.
Wasn't new trucks. Wasn't new wheels. Wasn't new anything. I couldn't blame anything.
Yeah.
Except myself. I couldn't do a frontside slappy to save my life.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
And yeah, it turned. I threw my sword. I like. Yeah, I lost it, like complete potty mouth, like swearing. I think I threw my board at a pole.
Like, I get that in the moment. Like, I don't get like that. Like, I don't really throw a board. I think the last time I threw a board is where, like, I tore a ligament in my ankle, and I was just like, I knew I was out for ages. I was just like,
frustration.
Yeah, but like that whole, like,
I'd never been like that. Like, I had so much respect for skateboards. Like, I never got into focusing boards in the 90s and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I never, like, smashed a board against the ground. Like, even if a board chipped, I used to try and repair it rather than get rid of it.
Yeah.
That's done.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I don't like dirty grip tape, so I think a board's when the grip tape's dirty. It's like, yeah.
Oh, it's going to add too much weight.
Yeah. I go through weird little eccentricities with skateboards where, and I wonder if that's actually, we should get back to coming to Newcastle.
Oh yeah, okay. So I followed a girl up here.
Okay, which happens.
Yeah. And that change in pace and work direction and a whole sea change, I guess you would say. It's allowed me to explore things like my new career of coding and getting into graphic design, and then having the time to put interest, all that focus that of creativity into something, and that's where that's why we have Death Breath.
Yeah.
Basically from injury and not being able to skate as much, and it's like I've got to do something skateboarding related.
Yeah. So before we dive into that, because I think this is going to be really interesting, and I don't want to break.
I don't want to jinx it.
No, I'm interested anyway, just because my interest is in people that take something on which they don't necessarily know much about, but they know they want to do it.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's basically the spirit of skateboarding.
Yeah.
From when you're a little kid, you don't know anything about it, but you want to do it. So, anyway, before we get into the inception and the follow through of Death Breath, how long have you lived in Newcastle?
Oh,
Or in the area,
well, I'm not that great with remembering things like that, but I'm going to say at least like 15 years now.
Yeah.
15 to 18 years.
And so when you picked up skating again, how long had you been here for?
I would say at least 10.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, or maybe 8.
Because here's the thing, and that just leads me into going, there's so much new development. I guess a lot of it came from the earthquake back in the day.
Yeah.
Where there's basically not a lot of old buildings around.
Yeah.
So, but now, especially, I've noticed in the last 10 years, Newcastle just blowing up as far as development goes.
Yeah.
And like there's fantastic plazas like at the museum right here that I was speaking to you earlier.
Yeah.
And they've put like a steel top on the ledge.
Well, the whole area is a skate, I guess, designated area.
When you told me that, I was amazed. There's such forward thinking.
Yeah.
And even the spots that seem to be like not so skate friendly almost seem built for skating.
Yeah.
Like around the docks and stuff like that. There's so much cool shit. And so when you got back into skating, living here, watching that come about, were you just like, this is like a dreamland, or?
No, it wasn't like that. I wasn't inspired to get back into skateboarding because of the area. I was doing surfing for a while. I was getting into that, or longboarding, and I was just like, oh yeah, this is cool. I can transfer some of that knowledge over to this, and oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
But it wasn't enough. And then there was actually, before the surfing, I was working at a boxing gym, and I really liked that because, like, there was a sparring or something like that. I was just like,
where you go, Helen?
I get that feeling of slamming, which is sadistic to actually to.
No, I find it really common.
Yeah,
I think you have, especially if you're coming back from an injury, you got to take one to feel like you're back, like to go, that's not even that bad. That's actually, that feels good.
Yeah. I actually drew parallels from slamming with sparring and just and feeding off that, I guess. And then went into surfing, transferring the knowledge of, and it feels like I'm trying to replace skateboarding with all these different things. It's just like, well, why not just
to get back to, that's it.
And then I was like, oh, okay, well, if I get back to skating, I want to try things that I wasn't consistent at before. I want to try and get them. So, like, learning things on ledges or rails or, like, flat bars, I should say.
Yeah.
So focus was like that. And I was like, just going down to a netball court, making myself an obstacle and just skating that and just going, okay. And next thing, I'm buying 5 or 6 decks, having product pillage behind me to, just ingratiate. What is it like? And just
I know what you're talking about, but I don't know the word either.
Just absorbing skateboarding into my life and
I get you.
myself into skateboarding, and so.
Well, that's the thing about skateboarding. I think it's highly addictive. And so it takes a semi-addictive personality to stay with it for so long and then get back into it. That's like, it's like, oh, I've had a relapse. I'm skating again.
Yeah, and then you just like by saying, it's healthy, I mean, they're doing exercise.
Yeah.
But mind you, my body is getting wrecked again from skateboarding, but this, that's the price.
But it's wrecked in the best possible way, I think, because I just think the mental aspect, like I can't find that anywhere else. That level of, like nothing matters for that moment. Maybe boxing, like sparring, is a little bit similar because you have to be absolutely in that moment.
Dreaming when
that's it. You're not thinking about your bills or like, did I feed the cat? But yeah, I mean, I haven't found personally anything that comes close for the level of time.
What about rollerblading?
Oh yeah, when I touched on that in the no, I'm not supposed to.
Okay,
yeah,
and take that.
Yeah, we can edit that out.
Roller skating.
Roller skating. I like roller girls.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So roller skating. Yeah. I'll say there's a roller girl.
BMX is, high octane, dangerous.
I think it's very close. I think the relationship between skateboarding and BMXing is much closer than the relationship between, let's say, skateboarding and rollerblading.
Yeah. Okay.
I think we relate a lot better, like the BMXers and the skateboarders, than the skateboarders and the rollerbladers ever did.
I think forever, like, and this is something I've experienced. It's just like, rollerblades. It's hardly dangerous. You know what I mean? Like we've got this skateboard thing that can, credit card you and all this sort of stuff.
Well, same with the BMX.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think they've had it worse for a lot longer.
Oh yeah. That's metal.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
And the pedals with the spikes into the shins.
Your leg in the wrong spot. Next thing you're in a bird's nest of steel.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. And like what are you dealing with the skateboard? Like it's quite easy to get rid of a skateboard when you're in the air. I think BMXers they got this short straw.
Yeah.
On like, what are you going to pursue that makes you feel good? That's also like likely to cause injury. Yeah. Actually, so let's jump into. So, where are we? We're in Newcastle. Chris is skating again.
He's back at it.
He's got some time, and then all of a sudden, death breath. So
all of a sudden, COVID.
All of a sudden, COVID. So thank you, COVID, for another.
Well, yeah, just another creative outlet that was spawned by a virus.
Were you working from home at the time?
I've been working from home for many years. I work remotely.
Okay. Cool.
So yeah, it's just I just needed something to do. Board shortage.
I guess the thing is, during COVID, the people that always worked from home would leave the house to do something they enjoyed, where like the people that worked away went home to do something. So
at home, so we had the board shortage where you couldn't really get what you wanted.
You couldn't get anything. I sold more works than I couldn't believe the units I was selling. Like over one Christmas, I was like, I can't keep up.
Yeah, well, I was at a point where I was like, well, I'll make a board. I've seen it done before. I've got a close mate that's a surfboard shaper.
I was going to ask, like, where did the knowledge of how to make a board?
There's not much knowledge really imparted to me, I guess. Like, okay, so I had the inspiration from Peter Shealy, who's a local shaper, has been shaping for over 40 years.
Yep.
I was surfing with him, and that's when I got into surfing. And like he would make my boards, and always get stoked. He'd send me progress photos of making boards, and just knowing that the whole shaping side of thing is so rooted in the history of surfing. Like it's
Yeah.
just amazing. As I was just thinking,
Well, the Zephyr team, like, yeah.
yeah, and then like just thinking, well, I could be up, I could just make my own board and just, you know, obviously ask questions along the way with Pete. And, you know, how do you get something symmetrical, you know, on the sides and stuff like that? How do you measure this and whatnot? So I got some knowledge transferred that way, but ultimately was like, okay, I'm going to make boards. I've got to find somewhere where I can get some uncut blanks, which was a challenge as well at the time, but it was easier than actually getting an actual board that you wanted.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, of
Like
course.
a bunch of uncuts from the States or something like that. And then it was just, okay, I'll drill holes and make a shape. So I think the first shape I made was a barge. I called it the barge, and it was essentially, I guess, kind of like a barnyard thing. Just a rounded square nose, rounded square tail, fat.
Yep.
And I was just like, wow, I made that, and I'm going to skate it.
Yeah.
And it was fun. I was just like, oh, well, I'll try and make another. And then,
How'd you go with the first one with symmetry?
Oh, look, I've still got it. I don't analyze the symmetry of it.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't because it.
Don't overthink it.
Yeah, exactly. Just accepting that
It worked.
Still,
Yeah.
and it was skated, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I obviously put a lot more effort into those kind of things now. But yeah, it was draw a pencil line, hacksaw, try and get some rounded edges, and compare it with decks I've got hanging up in my house. You know, and just go, well, how do they do this? How do they get the rounded edge so rounded?
Yeah.
And then and just each board was a progression into, I guess, learning how to make a skateboard.
Same as skateboarding, really. Yeah.
Yeah. So apologies to anyone that's got some of the earlier boards. Yeah. So it's just been a massive learning curve. So woodworking has never been a skill.
But now you're not. So sorry. So you went from no experience in woodworking whatsoever just to figuring it out.
Well, I had some experience. So I used to make nunchucks out of branches of trees.
Of course you did.
So cut a branch, peel the bark off, let it dry out for a day, get a U-bolt and some chain, and then we got nunchucks.
Yeah.
Took that experience and transferred that. So I had that. Yeah, I didn't go into it blindly.
But I mean, it's a lot of difference, you know.
Yeah. Look, it was just like, okay, well, I'll get a jigsaw. I've used one of those making, some kind of
Like jump ramps or wedge ramps or
kind of got the idea of, oh, well, that's not going to, I can bend lines and cut and stuff like that. So, and then it was like the drilling holes and making sure that they were in the right spot. That was a thing as well. Like, so it was like, okay, and you can get guides and stuff like, it's not too bad, you know, but I was trying to work out, using old base plates.
I was going to say.
Experimenting with that. And, well, then, okay, I really like this board. I remember I've got great memories of this board, and the distance between those trucks is this distance, but this one over here is that distance Y. And then learning about wheelbase, and then trying to understand that. Like, so I was skating a lot of the early boards, and I would do like a 15-inch wheelbase or 14.5 or 14.25, and then I'd be like, well, what's the difference? And then skate it and go, oh, okay, well, it's definitely more responsive like this.
Yes.
Small wheelbase is kind of shit on big transition. And so, like, just learning that stuff. So it's still a massive learning curve now. Like, there's still so much to learn. But it's essentially been board to board skating, asking questions.
So basically, it's been what? So 4 years?
I think it's 3.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Sorry.
And you're getting a lot of, as I understand it, a lot of custom orders. People going, I've got an idea for a board that I just can't find.
Yeah.
And coming to you with what kind of ideas have you had? Like what have people suggested? Have you ever gotten anything where you just went, no,
I haven't declined anything. I
Yeah.
think the wildest thing was one I made not that long ago. It's this big green thing. There was a guy that wanted a punk point, but he wanted it 10-inch wide, but wanted a Monty Noddler tail. And I was just like, what's a Monty Noddler? So I had to look up what's a Monty.
Yeah.
And then going off Google Images.
It's the adventure of the Backside Smiths.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's a Monty grind.
Well, when I think of Monty, or Monty Noddler, I think of the tail and how it jaunts out and then comes back in.
Yeah.
And might even have somewhat of a concave. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was getting all that from Google Images and just going, okay, that's what he wants. So I draw it up. And it's wild, but, he was happy with it.
Yeah.
And I'm stoked that I was able to deliver something like that. So that, other wild things are like, things I've made for Cameron Markham where he's just like, oh, can you make this bigger and chuck this kind of a popsicle nose and tail on the side, on the ends of this massive egg? And it's just like, okay,
Yeah.
there we go. And he skates it well, so.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I think it comes down to the individual, basically. And so that's why I think that it's really fucking cool that you're there going, okay, let's talk about ideas and stuff like that. And let's get back to, your process, as I understand it to be, what I've heard from you is like the communication with the client and coming from that background of what you learnt through like surfboard shapers is like basically the progress shots and stuff like that. So I
think it's important to kind of deliver, this is your custom board. You can see the creation of that board from pencil line. So I draw it up on the blank, and I go from the pencil lines, get an approval of that, do a rough cut. That's kind of what it's going to look like. Then do a smooth cut, rounded edges, and then it's like, okay, well, how do you want this to look? What do you want me to look after the stain, or do you have any ideas? What kind of screen do you want?
Yeah,
and then all that stuff. So it's pick your own board.
Yeah, that's it, basically, and that's every kid's dream. Like when you're a kid, and you're going, one day I'm going to be a pro skater, and like if you got any kind of artistic talent, you draw shit, and you go, this is going to be my pro graphic, and this is going to be the shape I want, like because every board, like from our era anyway, was a shaped board, like and really unique shapes, like the shapes like the Monty, like and that tail, or the Hosoi Hammerhead, or the Tony Hawk. Like you could tell what board it was from a silhouette without graphics, just based on the shape. So I think that's instilled in anybody from around our era, that it's like that dream of having your own pro model, basically, and having input into what is under your feet. It's an incredible, because I've been through it myself with you and just made a few suggestions and gone, look, could we do something like this? And the product I got back, I was like, oh, this is my board. I
get stoked when I look down and go, I wanted a 9.5-inch popsicle with a lovely rounded square tail, and I get stoked just looking down and seeing that. I think there's something very sexy about skateboard shapes, and that and I guess Death Breath has kind of helped me look further into shapes and stuff like that. So I think prior to actually making my own, prior to the inception of Death Breath, I should say, some of the boards I was getting were creature boards, and it was like this popsicle and then around the square tail, and I was like, that's wild. And it looks so different to just a normal popsicle over there, because I kind of wasn't impressed by short little rounded tails, and sure, it didn't suit what I was doing on a skateboard probably, and it just didn't draw my attention. But this rounded square, I was just like, oh, that's wild. And then you start going through seeing some of the other creature boards and just going, oh, they've done this with the nose. That's nuts.
Yeah.
And this is a whole creative thing. Like the skateboard deck is a canvas in itself. And, And then, so kind of like when you discover a band and then you discover a band's influences and you go back and back and back and back. And that's what it's been like with skateboard shapes. It's just,
right.
Well, that's kind of based on these old pull boards, and then it's just go, they're wild. Those, and then getting into pigs and all this. Yeah, it's exciting for me, and like
But you took it to the next level because, like, as you were saying, you were getting uncut rectangles,
Yes.
right?
yeah.
But now, like, you're pressing your own boards
Yeah,
as
so-
well. So you're starting from absolute scratch
Yeah.
with veneers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's been a learning curve as well, because thickness in veneers, based on where you get them from different wood shops, another thing I had to learn. Yeah, I might press. I remember some of the early days I would press this board and I'd just go, it feels thicker than, say, this deck I've got over here
Yeah.
by a millimeter, and I'd measure it and I'd go, that's nuts. Like, why is that thicker? And then I'd be reading about how some shops mill down their veneers to a certain thing, and I didn't have a thicknesser to then mill things down further.
Yeah,
I was just like, well, I don't want someone picking up and going, oh, death boards, they're way too heavy and they're thick.
Yeah.
That's going to mess with my
Yeah.
my skating. So, I sourced all this. I've learned all whatever, and I've got the veneer at a comparable thickness to
Yep.
a deck. So, like, these are all things I've had to learn. And
Yeah, it all makes a difference, right? It like from, I noticed I skated a few resin boards, so resin press boards,
Yep.
and noticed there was definitely a weight difference
Yeah.
on the heavier side. So I couldn't imagine riding the width of board I ride now and adding any extra weight to it.
Okay.
Like it all makes a difference.
But this is something that I've kind of awakened to doing Death Breath is I don't necessarily think any of that stuff matters. So, for instance, I was getting these blanks from the States, and they were like 1 millimeter thicker, and they were noticeably heavy.
Yeah.
But I found them for curve skating the best.
Yeah.
Absolute best. I was just like, okay, well, I don't know if that makes sense, but a heavier board slamming into a curb
Yeah.
is better. But I just remember these are perfect. These are perfect for curb skating. But like skateboarders, I feel like they'll, if something's not industry norm, it's just, oh, I don't want that. Like,
And we're a little superstitious as
yeah.
well.
And that's fair enough. And that's why I've gone, well, I want to make sure my boards are comparable, because I don't want that superstition to get in the way
Yeah.
of, say, discrediting something that I'm delivering,
Yeah, sure. Well, that's why I really think why skateboards forever, since they were made from veneers,
Yeah.
as opposed to just carved out of a block of wood.
Yeah, yeah.
7-ply. Like a lot of people have experimented with carbon fibers
Yeah.
and
The VX
fiberglass.
or Santa Cruz did.
Yeah, exactly. Which it wasn't bad, but I think we'll always end up going back to what we know, and that's based on tradition and superstition and what have you. But it's it's familiarity and like I think it's nostalgia as well from when you were a kid and you got your first board and you were like, that's good. Like, it's like I remember the Bonite boards, and I was trying to figure out what Bonite was. Like that shit in power boards. Turns out it's just cardboard, like with some tar or something on it. But yeah, but I was like, what is this stuff? It makes it stronger, but really heavy. And yeah,
I think I don't know. Like carbon boards, are they still popular? Like, do you think like?
but I think Bucky's just like I don't know if it's available for sale or someone just made it for him, but he's stoked on the carbon fiber board. Then I think it's complete. Yeah.
I don't know.
I think Bucky can ride anything, like a 4x2, like with some roller skate trucks on it. Yeah, and he'll be doing switch inverts and no comply deckers.
I think the introduction of these, let's say this time of, say, adding carbon to a skateboard, because I'm sure like evolution in skateboarding stuff like this has happened every now and then. Someone's trying to add like a new product to a skateboard to change. But I think around this time, all it's really done is it's pushed up the prices of skateboards. So like your VX decks and all that stuff, they were easily $20-$30 more.
And your flight board.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it was like, okay, well, I can get like a shitty maple 7-ply for the normal price, or I can get this carbon,
which isn't
one
shitty.
But no, I'm just saying, like that's how I guess they would kind of sell it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you get this super strong carbon alternative for $20-$30 more. But I'm not seeing that anymore. Instead, I'm seeing that the normal boards have just moved up to that price range. Like skateboards have definitely gone up, and I think the introduction of that new technology is essentially just pushed up the prices, which is good.
I gotta say though, I didn't see an increase in skateboard prices through my lifetime in skateboarding. I remember like a pro model board was in 1986 was $120.
Yeah.
A pro model board.
Yeah.
And then 10 years ago, in 2013, a pro model board was $120. Yeah. And like trucks were a very similar price. Wheels were a very similar price. I was like, and I was saying to people all the time, going, skateboarding is the only industry that is not affected by exterior inflation. Like, it will stay the same price forever. And then I jinxed it.
Yeah, we've got you to blame.
Yeah, exactly.
Trucks are going up.
Everything's gone up. But I think materials in general on planet Earth have all gone up.
The shipping for me to get my veneer, is a massive slump.
But also your time going into it. Like, what do you reckon you spend hours on each individual board? Like, for how many do you press at once?
I press two at a time. So my mold has an offset to allow for 2 decks to be pressed. They say in the press for 24 hours, then they cure for a week.
Yeah.
So like I might press, if I'm onto it, I'll press between 10 to 14 a week.
Okay.
And just make sure I've always got a stack, ready to cut out. But yeah, in terms of how long it takes, it depends, like I say, every board is a progression in learning how to do things a different way or do things better. So I'm definitely getting faster at it. But with that, I'm then venturing into things like wheel wells, and they take a time, and they can, if I don't get those right, they can ruin the whole.
I'd hate to think of the math that's involved in that, because I guess you'd have to draw it, and you got to cater to where different trucks are gonna, so there's room for depending on what trucks people ride.
Yeah, myself included, but brands are releasing boards with wheel wells, and it's like, well, for a fact that they're not going, well, this works with a 60mm wheel on a Thunder, but doesn't work with a 52 on an Indy.
No, they've just got a wheel well.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of it's aesthetics, and I buy into that too. I think wheel wells look good.
Absolutely, you look at Beamers and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, so it could be anything. Like a single deck, could be like say, I don't know, let's say 3 hours. Let's say that's drawn up, cut out, shaped, stained, with time in there for clear coat to dry, things like that. Like, it's really how long is a piece of string is.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you as well, you screen as well?
So I had to learn that, which I admire any person that screen prints.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a skill, and especially screen printing on convex and concave, like, is a bitch, and learning about.
I always wondered how that worked.
Tension. Yeah, so like you get less newtons in your screen.
Yeah.
Which is less tension, which means
it'll flex to the shape.
Yeah, a lot better, and hopefully prevent the bleed of ink.
Okay.
Underneath, but there's ways.
Is that again trial and error?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like some of the earlier boards that people have bought, and I apologize once again. The screen printing is a lot to be desired, but that's all. This stuff is just things I've learnt along the way, and people have been supporting me, and I appreciate that.
I just think it's cool. Like I said, I just like, because I find skateboarding such a personal thing and such a like a creative outlet.
Yeah.
And I always like people creating within the creative outlet, you know, like they're just
Like zines and...
yeah, like everything just going, I really appreciate skateboarding and this is my idea for it. This is what I want to do. And
my little corner of skateboarding.
yeah, exactly. So I just find it blows my mind when people just take it to the level that you have, where you become a skateboard manufacturer, and not to the kind of, and not saying anything bad about people who just manufacture like cookie cutter, but to actually take custom orders from one individual and make one board for that person, because you don't have a minimum order kind of thing, do you?
No, and I'll be terrified if...
Yeah.
Say I might put a maximum order in. But
Yeah.
no, I don't. You know, yeah, I just work with whatever the person wants. But you know, with that, skateboarding, and especially my pocket of skateboarding, is very personal to me because I've designed the concave to how I want concave, and you know, for sizes of boards that, you know, kind of I want to make. Like I'll make anything.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so I've had to. There is some intrinsically personal parts of Death Breath that maybe others won't vibe on, such as concave, but you know.
But I mean, it's personal taste. Yeah. It's always going to be personal taste. Within, like, that's art, isn't it? And that's the creative aspect of it. It's like you watch one person watching someone skate goes, yeah, look, I can appreciate what they're doing, but it's not my style.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the next person just gets mind blown by it, you know?
Yes.
So, yeah, I think that aspect of personal taste just will always be within creative realms.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think as, well, the size of what Death Breath is now, like, I think it works fine. Like, I'd love to get down the path to do something a little bit more, even
that was going to be a question
to my custom, you know, to branch that out a bit more, maybe different concaves or different lengths for accommodating molds for different wheelbases, stuff like that. Because I get, you know, some of the older dudes, they want something like 15, well, 15 is not too bad, but like 15 and a half, 16 and a half, it's just like, oh, that's not going to, you know, that's not going to work on my current mold.
No, because then your kick starts before, so you trust.
Basically going into a longboard.
Yeah,
on my
right.
So, you know, there's...
Are your molds concrete?
Yes.
So, what if you poured another section of concrete and you just cut out the middle so you can add a section to make it longer?
There's definitely ways. Like, I could just pour another mold, but then...
Yeah, true.
But they're like 120 kilos each.
So, you don't want to put that in that.
Yeah, you know, I just need more space. So the current, I work out of a kind of fancy little garden shed at the moment, and I've maxed that out with tools and the press and paint stuff and whatever. I'd love to expand on that.
Yeah.
And then have, you know, multiple presses.
Do you reckon that's the future?
No, I don't know. I honestly, I don't want to say this is what the end goal is, because like I'm loving how fluid it is at the moment. Like, you know, I'm doing bigger boards at the moment. I might not do that, and like I'm just going with it at the putting.
Also, you never know.
Pressure on myself as well, because I'm still working full time. So
right.
Yeah,
oh, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And what? So, what if people want to get a board made?
Yes.
What do they do?
They can hit me up on Instagram, Facebook, yell at me in public.
Yeah.
Just get my attention somehow.
You know what he looks like now.
I've got a website, deathbreathskateboards.com. Death Breath Skateboards on all the social things.
Yeah.
So just hit me up and we can talk about it, float some ideas.
That's so cool. And thanks for being here today, man. I reckon we wrap it up there anyway.
Okay, I appreciate you having me on. And
hey, no, it's my pleasure, because I'm in Newcastle again.
Yeah.
So
and we love having you here.
Yeah. Well, John Bogart said he loves having me here. You're saying it. Maybe I should know.
That was the first skating life I had.
Oh, on the cover? Yeah, right. That's awesome. There you go, Johnny B. Yep.
Cool. Now I'm back in Newcastle.
There you go. Look, you influenced somebody. Yeah. All right, mate.
Thank you very much.
We'll catch up again soon. Cheers.